Welcome back to the Budget Archive. My name is Mitch. Before we get into this deck list, don't forget to go and check out my last video, as we're still running a giveaway on that. We have about 3 or 4 days until I run that giveaway, so this is your last chance to enter. Now, Suda is one of those decks that wants to win the game as fast as possible. Because your whole game plan is running around allies and buffing each other up and supporting each other in order to deal mass amount of damage at your opponent at once, you quite often find that you run out of steam going into the later game. However, unlike something like Pfizer, this can survive through to that middle game a lot better and is a perfect opportunity for a new player to jump into the game, have an aggressive deck that can win fast, while also being able to learn the ways that they have to survive into the late game if that is required. So getting on to Regalia, we've got Spirit of Fire. Of course, we've got Lorraine Morning Warrior being a level 1 champion. We only run 1 champion in this deck. For Lorraine, we have Materialize a Weapon Cover material cost 0 from your material deck. Of course, in this deck, we've got 2 options. We've got Audible Greatsword, 0 drop, 1/1 sword. Target ally gets +1 in turn. It's not really going to be the main one you want to bring out a lot of time, but it can be an option, especially going to late game if you need a little bit of extra damage. Bringing this out while you've got allies on the board is effectively a +2 damage on that turn. So it can be a good thing just to close out a little bit of damage as required. Our main weapon is going to be Impact Hammer here. The 0 cost 2 attack, 2 durability weapon. That whenever you attack with it, you deal 3 damage yourself. Now, a lot of the time there is a downside. You don't really want to be dealing damage yourself. However, as we'll see soon, there is an attack card in this deck that gives it a little bit of a buff from having that effect, allowing us to do a lot more damage than what you'd think. We've also got Enfeebling Orb. Enfeebling Orb is one of those Regalia where it just is a good interaction piece to bring out on a turn where you don't necessarily have something else you want to be bringing out. It banish it, target opponent puts 2 cards from their hand to memory. So if your opponent's holding up what you think might be a Veiling Breeze or might be something along the lines of that where they're going to be able to stop your damage from happening that turn, this is a great card to be able to bring out, force them to either play the thing they're going to play now or put their cards into memory, giving you the open space to kill them. So it can be one of those ones, especially if you've got a card in your hand like Blazing Throw or something, where you don't necessarily want to sacrifice the Regalia right now to play it. You can use this in order to bait out the interaction to then go for it on your following turn. Smoke Bombs is a 1-cost Regalia. Banish it, target ally gains stealth until end turn and draw a card. Not only does this replace itself, but also it gives stealth to one of those interceptors or taunters that's causing you problems. Now, in the meta at the moment, there of course are a lot of the Shinju allies, as well as because of Water Dyna's popularity prior to the banning, a lot of people are still running a lot of taunters, whether it be shield mates or wraith guards. This is just one of those options to have in the deck that is great in order to stop one of those from being a problem for a turn and allow your opponent to just be open to all your allies and attack directly through to them. Terrafring, 0 cost Regalia. Causes your opponent to have to pay 2 extra to attack you during their turn that it's banished. It's a great piece of prevention just to allow your allies to survive an extra turn if you think they're going to be able to kill off your allies in a single turn. Of course, then we're all running all 3 bubbles, the fire, the water, and the wind bubbles. These are just great draw pieces, allows you to give the consistency. It's one of those Regalia where you could replace this with Grand Crusader's Ring if you have it. However, in the budget deck, of course, we do not have Grand Crusader's Ring, so this is a great option to have in here. If you do have Grand Crusader's Ring, you could even look at taking all 3 of these out and bringing something else in as a utility piece in the deck. Or you could just take one of these out, put it in the sideboard, and you've got that movement of Regalia to allow you to have 2 free draws in your deck. Then got Infernal Vessel. This is a 0 cost Regalia that if target player would recover an amount, they recover X instead, where X is that amount minus 3. Now, there's a lot of healing going on in the meta at the moment. Alice is the main culprit of this. They are healing like up to 10 a turn, which no, this is not going to stop all that heal, but it's going to limit it as much as possible. But this is mainly for decks like Luxem Fire Xander, where they are healing 9-12 a turn pretty consistently into the late game. And that mainly comes from their Luxem sites, which are heal 3 on reveal. So this shuts that off completely, stops them from healing anything, and can give you that little bit extra damage through in order to kill them, because it's going to take them a couple turns to remove this, if they even have the piece to remove it in their hand. Duchess of Thorns. This is a Proxy of Vault Regalia, so it's free to all you guys to print out. Make sure you check out the Proxy's Vault, because all those cards you can just print out and play them in competitions as a printed out copy. You don't need to have the physical card. So don't actually think this exists yet as a physical card. Worlds will be the first time you can get this. It's a 0-cop Regalia. Comes in hindered, but whenever you activate a cardistry ability of an ally, the ally gets +1 and true sight until end of turn. So this is a pretty insane ability. You effectively bring this out straight away and then start activating your abilities on turn 2 after you brought this out, and all these attacks can get +1 damage. Do remember this gives them true sight, so if you have smoke bombed something on your opponent's field as well as having this out, you aren't going to be able to attack your opponent directly because that true sight will give you the ability to attack the stealth unit. However, this is just one of those cards that can give you that burst of damage early on, and if your opponent does manage to remove it, well, you got a piece of removal out of their hand, you can continue on with your game plan. It's also got the tap ability of Banish It. The next cardistry you activate this turn costs 6 less to activate. This doesn't come into effect super often, but there are a few cards in this deck, as we'll see, that you can probably afford to banish this and use its ability in order to give you that free activation, as it might just win you the game. Moving on to the main deck, we've got 5 of Spades. This is one of your main 2-in-1 plays, I'd say, in Suited. It's a 1/4 unit for 5. So not the best stat line in the world, however, being a 4-but, your opponent's often going to struggle to remove it on turn 1. And if they do, they're giving you the floating memory anyway in order to level up into the range straight away. So there isn't really a downside to it. Of course, it's got the cardistry effect of pay 5, it gets +5 until end of turn, and with all the cardistry effects in this deck, the ability costs 1 less for each suited object you control with a different reserve cost. As we'll see throughout the deck, we've got all the way from 1 up to about 6 in the deck, so quite often these abilities can become free, if not maybe 1 or 2 cost, which is still worthwhile to get a +5 damage to a single attack. 4 of Spades, a 4-drop 2/3. Again, not the best stat line, as we'll find out throughout this. A lot of these allies, their main stat lines aren't quite up to par with a lot of allies. However, because they work together to reduce their costs, they can become very powerful. Got the cardistry effect of pay 4 and draw card of memory, so it does replace itself, becoming a 2/3 ally that replaces itself, and quite often this can become a free activation, if not maybe 2 or 3, which you can do in your collection if you have cards left in your hand. Your Ace of Spades, so 1 cost 1/1, that as long as you control an unsuited ally, it has stealth. Don't forget that, it can be incredibly important and can often win you games. On enter, depending on the total reserve cost of suited objects you control, put a buff counter on it if you have 6 of the total cost, 10, put 2 buff counters, and 21, put 4 buff counters on it. Very rarely you're going to get the 4 buff counters, but generally it's going to be the 2 buff counters or the 1. Please remember, you have to have the exact amount for this. So you have to have exactly reserve costs among suited objects, or 10 for the 2 buff counters, or 21 for the 4. You can't have 7 or 12 in order to get the effects. It's not at least, it is exactly. So it does take a bit of math sometimes just to make sure that you're going to have that amount when you play this. So you may want to play another 2-drop out while having 5 of Spades on the field before playing something, another 2-drop and then this, just to get up to that 10. The math always changes, but there's always a way to do it. Ray Slash. This is a 3-cost 3 attack for your champion. So you effectively play this, take the champion as part of the cost. On attack, put a buff counter on up to 2 suited allies you control. So when you've gone 5 of Spades on turn 1, followed up by maybe a 2 of Spades or 3 of Spades, something like that, onto the field while having 7 cards in your hand, 8 cards in your hand on this turn, you can then attack with this, put a buff counter on those 2 allies, get the 3, maybe 4 damage depending on what weapons you've brought out from your ally, your champion, and then also the extra damage from your allies as well. 3 of Spades. This is probably your most versatile unit in this deck because it's a 3-drop 2/2. Not the best stat line, of course, but it's just extra damage while having the ability to save your important units as well. It's got the pay 3, target suited ally you control gets +2 until end of turn on their health. So quite often, because this counts as south, of course, so it's going to be a 2 cost immediately. Often you're going to be able to pay 1 or even 0 for this, making it a free activation of +2 health to any suited allies, including itself. So you can just save itself if you've attacked in to try and kill it, or if maybe they're attacking in to try and kill this to bait out the effect, and you think they're going to go and try and attack one of your more important units afterwards, then maybe you want to activate this, buff up your friendly unit, let this die, and then they're going to have a harder time killing that unit. Trump set, this is a 2 cost. It has got class bonus costing 1 less. However, we aren't Guardian, we're Warriors, so it's always going to be a 2 cost in this deck. It has the effect of change the target of attack to a suited ally you control. If you do, that ally gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So you have to change the target of attack. So effectively, if you've got 2 suited allies on the board and they attack one of them, you can just activate this, change the attack to the other suited ally, give it +3/+3 until end of turn, and most attacks aren't going to be killing it unless they're going real overboard. It's also a good way that if your opponent is attacking your champion, they are going to be dealing 20 damage in a single attack, as some decks can do. This can be just one of those ones to catch them out, change the attack to a suited ally. Yes, the ally is going to die, but suddenly you aren't taking all that damage, you're not going to die, and you can often kill them in the crackback. 2 of Spades, this is a 2 cost 1/1. It's fast activation, so you can activate it at any time you could activate a fast speed card. So during recollections, in response to your opponent playing such. It has a card effect of pay 2, put a buff counter on it. Costs 1 less, so it's going to be a 1 cost. Generally, if you're playing this out, you've got another unit on the board, so it's going to be a free ability. It effectively becomes a 2 cost 2/2 at fast speed. It's pretty good. However, your opponent can interact with this a little bit to prevent you from putting that buff counter on if they've got a 1 ping source somehow in order to kill it before it happens. But quite often this can be one of those good hold up 3 cards if you've got Trump set in hand. If you don't have to play Trump set in your recollection, play this out, activate its ability, end up with a 2/2 on board where your opponent might not have thought you would be able to get that many allies on board that turn. Wonderland's Reign, cardistry 10, draw a card. Quite often, pretty much never going to activate this unless Duchess of Thorns comes into effect, where maybe you need that 1 extra card in order to actually win the game, and you can sacrifice that, make this cost 6 less. Generally, you're going to have a couple other cards on the board, so you're going to be able to draw that card for free sometimes, but not always. Now, this is a 0 cost. That's pretty much the only reason it's in the deck, is another costing of a suited object. So because all these cards, such as like 4 of Spades, it's suited object you control, not ally. Wonderland's Reign does count, even though it's in Fantasia. So it just means that it's going to give that 1 reduction to everything on the board, and it is just a good card to be able to play out in turn 1. Being a 0 drop, it's not costing you anything, and then suddenly you're finding that everything is costing you 1 less. Arthur Young here. Now this is one of those cards where it's good turn 1, because you can make it immortal when it enters, and then as long as it's rested, allies you control get +1 attack. After that, it does become a little bit clunky in order to play it out, because you are paying 4 for an ally that's just attacking for 2 and can pretty easily be removed. However, this also can be a good distraction for your opponents. If they are constantly trying to remove your other allies, you can play this out alongside a suited ally, meaning they're going to want to get rid of this first and possibly leave that suited ally alive, giving you the chance to go into your next turn, playing a couple more suited allies out and starting to pop off with their effects. Ashen Riffle, 2 cost fast speed. Reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, banish up to 2 suited non-action cards revealed this way, put the rest on your bottom of your deck in any order for as long as they remain banished. You may activate them. This is a great thing, especially early game, in order to just effectively add more cards to your hand without them being added to your hand. So it doesn't quite work like a draw 2, but effectively does give you that option of being able to then maybe get a 2 of Spades and a 3 of Spades or something into your banishment straight away, and then pay the cost to activate them without having to play anything from your hand. Blazing Throw, as we mentioned earlier, as a additional cost to activate this, you must sacrifice a weapon you control. Generally, this is going to be Automail Greatsword, maybe Impact Hammer if you've swung with it, done a ton of damage, and you can kill them using this. This is really one of those explosive pieces that allows you to deal massive amount of damage early on, being that it deals 4 damage to target unit, generally your opponent, but you can use this on allies as well if required. And being a 1 cost, it is fairly cheap. Duchess 6 of Hearts. This is a 6 cost 4/2 ally with Kindle 6. So Kindle is effectively banish any number of fire cards, and for each card banish this way, pay 1 of this cost. So if you've got 6 fire cards in your graveyard already, you can banish all 6 and play this for free. Pretty good effect and gives you a pretty powerful ally for cheap. Cardistry being 6, banish a fire element action card with reserve cost 2 or less from your graveyard. If you do, copy it, and activate the copy without paying its reserve cost. Of course, it costs 1 less for each suited object you control, so quite often this can be a 3 or a 2 cost ability. However, when you've got the Duchess of Thorns in effect, you can sacrifice that, make this cost 6 less, and suddenly cardistry is a free activation, which in this deck will quickly skip down to straight flare, which is where this becomes into effect. Being a 2 cost fast speed, deal X damage to target unit, where X is the amount of suited objects you control with a different cost, +1. Quite often, you'll have 3, maybe 4 suited objects on the field at once, so this can be a 5 damage at fast speed, which when your opponent's trying to use something like a Crystallized Destiny or just some type of invention to stop you from killing them, being able to activate this fast speed can just cause your opponent to lose the game on the spot. And having Duchess here with that already in graveyard can mean that this can effectively be a 2 activations of it. So you could just activate straight flare, deal 5 damage to your opponent, have it go to the graveyard, then while whatever your opponent's got on the stack active, you can sacrifice Duchess of Thorns, activate this ability, and then activate the straight flare copied straight away, dealing 5 more damage. 10 damage out of nowhere is pretty insane in a lot of decks and will close out a lot of games. 4 hearts, it's a 4 cost 1/3 ally, with cardistry 4 being draw a card into your memory, put a fire or norm element suited ally reserve cost 3 or less from your memory onto the field. Of course, a majority of our allies are less than 3 or 3 or less. There are a few that you won't be able to do, but you generally want to play this out when you're going to have that effect. This is a great thing to be able to play out if you've played something like 5 spades turn 1, gone into your next turn, played this out, suddenly this effect costs 2. Being able to pay 2, draw a card in memory, bring out a 3 cost straight away, can just give you that tempo swing of having a bigger board than your opponent when you probably shouldn't do, and then giving you that extra damage that you otherwise might not get. Heat of Vengeance, this is a 3 cost 2 attack text card. Now this is where the impact hammer comes into effect. As long as your champion is taking damage this turn, it gets +3 to the attack. So this becomes a 5 attack card if you've taken damage. And when we read impact hammer over here, it is whenever a unit uses this weapon for attack, deal 3 damage to it. So you've got to take damage anyway for attacking with this, and then mixed with the Heat of Vengeance, you're going to be attacking for 7, which for 3 is pretty good, and especially because things like Rending Flames get turned off by Nullifying Lantern. This is one of those ones that can't easily be turned off unless your opponent's just got Prevention, which is going to stop anything else anyway. It's also got the class bonus of on attack, have it deal 3 damage to your champion. So if you have lost the impact hammer already, or maybe attacked it a couple of times, blazing throwing it, you can, once you're Lorraine level 1, attack with this, use the on attack trigger, deal 3 damage to yourself, attacking for 5 anyways. Rouge Ace of Hearts, on enter, depending on your total reserve cost of suited objects you control, same as the Noir Ace of Spades, you get the effects. So it's 6, 10, and 21 again. Pretty standard numbers for this deck. Those are the numbers you're going to be aiming for when you're getting these things onto the field. Choose a unit, deal 2 damage to it. Choose a unit, deal 4 damage, and choose a unit, deal 8 damage. Again, you're generally going to be dealing 4 or 2 damage. This can be a good thing to bring out to possibly remove something like a Dream Fury or another ally on the field that's causing you problems without having to attack into it. Straight Flare we talked about. This is one of those cards you want to hold up all the time because it can be just the answer to a lot of things you come up against. 2 of Hearts, 2 cost, cardistry being 2, so effectively going to cost 1 by itself. Gets +2 until end turn. Again, it's just one of those burst out damage things where it's very cheap to play down. You can attack effectively immediately for 3 damage. If you've got the Duchess of Thorns on the field already, it's going to be for 4 damage. So just one of those ones that can add a ton of damage early on, and even late game can help you remove one of those pesky taunters if you're having problems with it. Urta, Queen of Hearts. This is one of those unique allies in the deck where it's not necessarily going to be for the early game. It's mainly if the game goes longer, this is when you're going to want to bring this out. Has the effect of you may banish 3 or more suited ally cards with total reserve cost 10 from your graveyard, rather than pay this card's reserve cost. So rather than having to pay 10 to play this out, you can just banish 3 or more suited allies from your graveyard, which add up to 10 reserve cost. In this deck, with all the different numbers and everything, it's not hard to do. And when this enters the field, you've got other suited allies have immortality. Particularly, they've got to remove this before they remove anything else on your board. and it's going to cause a lot of problems for your opponent if they can't remove this. And on death, suited allies you control get +1 until the end of your next turn. So if your opponent's only got maybe 4 damage for the turn, they get rid of this, then suddenly the rest of your board that is now left has a ton more damage going into your next turn and can be a game finisher. Moving into our sideboard, we've got Safeguard Amulet. Safeguard Amulet is just spell prevention, pretty decent, pretty good. You're going to bring this in to take out whatever bauble you aren't using in that matchup. Same with Sword of Seeking, another good sword that is able to be brought out with lane. If your opponent's got a lot of stealth units or is just causing you a few problems, you can bring this in. You're always going to bring this in to take out one of the baubles that is not being used in that matchup. Spout of the Departed. Now this is a bit of a good utility piece at the moment. Yes, it's going to cost us 3 because we don't go level 2, so we're not going to get the reduction. But destroying up to 1 target Fantasia is just so good in the meta at the moment. You got Razor Gale, you got Stifling Guys, you've got a ton of different Fantasias that are just causing a lot of problems at the moment. So being able to remove any of them is just a good thing to be able to have. Fire Interference, 2 cost at fast speed, deal 2 damage to target unit. If that unit is a champion, its controller can't recover until end of turn. So this effectively stops a lot of those massive healing decks at the moment, especially Alice. So if you are having problems with those, you could even move this into the main board. It was just one of those choices where I wanted to keep the main board as simple as possible into the same game plan of just attack, attack, attack. Whereas this is a little bit more of a stepping back, slowing the deck down a little bit, and being able to survive through to the late game while stopping your opponent from healing a ton. Smokeout, 1 cost, deal 1 damage to target unit. If that unit has stealth, deal 4 damage to it instead. This is good into any number of decks at the moment. There is a lot of stealth units out there, so being able to remove effectively any of them is great. However, things like Dream Fury, which might set you back if you've got 3 of a single ally in your hand, are easily removed with this. Being able to give your opponent's unit stealth or smoke bombs and then use this on it to then kill it straight away can also be another way to play around this. It's just so versatile and got so many different uses. Also, if you're finding that something in this deck is not working, it's not going to work in this current matchup because of whatever your opponent's playing, being able to bring this in as a way to pop Crystallized Destinies or Spell Shields is just a good utility piece to be able to bring in. Moving into upgrades, there isn't a huge amount of upgrades for this deck. However, we do have a couple, with 3 of Hearts being $12.85 each. This is a 3 cost, 2/3 allies, so already a decent stat line, and has the cardistry effect of playing 3, draw a card and discard a card. Often this effect can be free as well, so it's a good way to get something like a 5 of spades into the graveyard in the late game where you might not normally be able to get rid of it out of your hand and replace it with something better, or even being able to discard a straight flare to this in order to then activate it using an effect like 6 of Hearts, where quite often you might not be able to play it from your hand, or there might be a situation where the only way to activate it is through her. We've then got Grand Crusader's Ring, being a $17 card, a lot cheaper. Not for this version, by the way. It is for the RDO version. This version's about $23, I believe. But it is just a good consistency piece to have. If you do not have a Grand Crusader's Ring, it is probably one of those Regalia I'd say go buy one. You're never going to have a bad time putting it into your deck. Yes, certain decks might have better options out there now. However, if you do not want to spend the hundreds of dollars to get those options, this can be a great Divine Relic just to put in your deck, giving you that extra draw power where a lot of decks just don't have that draw. We then have Censor of Restful Peace, $22.74. It is up there at the moment. It is getting pretty expensive. It was about a $12, $13 card at one point, and at that point, it was probably worth picking up. Now, if you're trying to keep your budget down, I wouldn't say go and grab this is your best option, as it is a little bit more of a late game effect, where if you've not been able to kill them fast or they're just outpacing you, being able to bring this out, slow them down is a good option, but there are just better options out there in this deck at the moment. Moving on to the deck costing, we've got Material Deck coming in at $4, Main Deck coming in at $64.82, and Sideboard coming in at $4.95. Now, this of course isn't the cheapest deck I've made. If you do want to cut a bit of cost on it, I'd say Arthur Young here is probably your main removal from the deck. It will take away some of that early game aggression. However, it puts you into a more just suited playstyle where you're going to be going suited ally turn 1, into Duchess of Thorns turn 2, and then following up with Suitor Allies immediately after, consistently powering out a ton of damage early on, and then being able to go into Lorraine to get that little bit of life to you and bringing out that Impact Hammer for a Heated Vengeance in turn 3 and 4 if required. However, as it stands, this is a great list in order for a newer player to pick it up, be able to go along to locals and actually compete without feeling like you're just behind the times all the time, and being a total of $73.77 is a pretty good price point for a beginner deck that allows you to still compete at locals and possibly even a regionals without feeling like your opponent's just going to stomp you every single game. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below to let me know what other decks you'd like to see me make. And also, reminder, go back and check out my last video and enter that giveaway. You only have 3 or 4 more days to do that. Until next time, stay safe.